I'm now with renowned broadcaster Adrian Krasta, and I'm going to ask him, what is it like to work in television in Albania and in London? He worked for the BBC, and also he lectures to young journalists now. What is the advice he gives them? So welcome.
Thank you.
How did you get started in journalism?
Oh my God. Well, this is my very first interview in English, so I didn't Britishize my speaking.
Right.
It's not Cockney. I'm not using my
linguistic
charm. I'm gonna stay in my broken guttural kind of English.
It's good.
Don't mind, please.
It's good.
But in respect of the audiences in Great Britain, and it was my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Because I respect you professionally. And well, Ian, the start is always a little bit by occasion.
Absolutely.
And I had to study and get a diploma as an engineer. My father was a physician, my mother too.
Right.
So they wanted to reproduce themselves in a convincible way,
yes,
which was a wrong one, by the way. So I studied for 6 years, very gloomy, very difficult, chemical engineering. But at the time, I had a cousin of my father's who worked as a artistic director on the radio.
Okay.
I told him that I had a passion about talking in the radio. He kind of allowed me to go there, and it started.
Do you know, we have similar stories because
I know.
because I had just passed the appropriate school exams, and then the local newspaper in my area advertised for a trainee photojournalist, and I wanted to go for it, and my father said, "You're not doing anything like that at all." And my mother went behind my father's back. She rang the editor, found out that it was a properly constructed apprenticeship and course. I went for an interview and got the job, so I was very lucky.
But after being very successful in your life, did your parents kind of acknowledge?
The biggest thing that my parents did was years later. By now I was working in Fleet Street, as you know, is the national body of national newspapers. And I was back at my family home one day, and I said, I did a great interview 2 or 3 weeks ago. Oh yes. And I said, I'd wish I'd kept the cutting of it now because it was so superb. They said, well, that's okay. They said, go down the cellar. And there was a cellar to my family home, and I walked down the cellar, and I couldn't get in the cellar. They'd bought every single newspaper since my first day in Fleet Street. And not only had they bought every single newspaper, they'd bought every single edition of the newspaper as well. You know, and I will never forget it. So I think my parents were tremendously proud.
Same with the video cassettes of my programs. Now it's a pile of them, not usable anymore. But it showed me that devotion or dedication, they kind of adopted later on in helping me, supporting me, accepting me.
Yeah. How do you think journalism has changed? Because one of the things I look at now is 24-hour rolling news. In my world, I'm not really a supporter of it because I feel that journalism suffers. The reason why I feel journalism suffers is that a lot more stories that really don't have a great deal of significance are sexed up in order to make any type of news at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. How do you feel about 24-hour rolling news?
In order for me to explain to you what happened with the journalism, audio or video journalism in this country, which in a way is an expression of what happened globally. We're not very far away from what happens in the world, but what happened with me. I am a television show host. In a way, I was David Frost to
Really?
Nixon in a way. So no serious news.
Yeah.
My life professionally kind of changed when Julia Goga, my boss in World Service, decided to kind of keep me on. So when I went to the BBC, it was clean cut news.
Yes.
Now coming to this country, I kind of understood that the show, or let me rephrase it, everybody does show nowadays. Even the news is doing show in order for the news to be more, chewable,
Absolutely,
understandable, or viable for the massive audiences.
Yeah.
So, to me, the journalism is getting light and lighter. Is getting a little bit carried on towards the most easy audiences to kind of catch up, and more superficial, more sellable.
Yeah.
So we all changed we all changed unwittingly.
Yeah. You mentioned David Frost. It brings me, all journalists have a story for every occasion.
Well,
and my story about David Frost was that he was my first ever cutting.
okay.
I was 10 years old, and David Frost came from my hometown. And the children's comic that I used to read every week paid 10 shillings and sixpence for the story about your hometown. So I wrote about David Frost living in my hometown. I was 10 or 11 years of age, and the next week there's my name in my comics. It's my first cutting, and I get this postal order for 10 and sixpence. So, and I met him years later and told him.
The luck, it's somehow easy to touch in a way.
You teach journalism now as well, so what are the main pointers that you try to get through to young journalists?
Nowadays, becoming a journalist, it's not directly related to the professional editorial issues. I mean, today it's becoming more difficult because the facts now have in front of them different facts, alternative facts,
Yes.
Trumpian facts.
Absolutely.
So it's not about writing piece news anymore.
Yeah.
Today is being honest about them. I mean, honesty, working for the public's interest, making divisible or divide journalism from propaganda.
Yeah.
I guess the young journalists have to kind of decide early on they want to be, keysassers of the government,
Sure.
or they have to fight. And if you fight, you can lose, you can win. This is something in.
Absolutely.
So this is the moment in time. This is the crossroad for becoming a journalist today. Plus, Ian, we live in a multimedia environment today.
Yes.
It's internet, Instagram and Facebook. Everybody today is a citizen journalist.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to necessarily prepare a journalist in school when everybody can contribute,
Of course.
even can attack or contribute to the lies, etc. So this is a very difficult moment for someone who decides in the name of passion to become a journalist.
Yeah. I mean, I think as well, when I first started into Fleet Street, I was an investigative journalist for a while. And if I had a good story and the editor would say, yes, go for it, I could have 3 to 6 months to actually develop the story before it came to market as well. And I wonder whether or not these days a lot of research goes out the window. One of big bugbears is that working in television, a large percentage of the researchers are 18 to 20 years old. They've just come out of journalism college, and when they're asked by an editor to research a project or a story, they just go straight on to the internet, to YouTube, and whatever they see is what they report back. And ultimately that actually defines how the story is finally portrayed. So for me, I think not so much care happens these days. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, at least, and when I was driving from Pristina to finally meet you and talk to you, I kind of try to understand that what happens with a well-known journalist, British journalist coming down to Balkans and wander around countries like Albania or Macedonia or I don't know, Montenegro. We know your weakness for Greece, Churchill and Duke of and Edinburgh, Mum and everything else. So that's why I'm not mentioning Greece. But you might easily understand that we are a different kind of societies.
Yes.
We are the Albanian society is a vivid one, but a wild one. So the journalism is a mirroring expression of the Albanian society. A passionate one, a vivid one, a crazy one. So I don't know, what do you think about my people? In what order? Smart and crazy or crazy and smart? Or neither of them?
If I'm honest, I feel proud to be working with Albanians, people like yourself. So Albania and Albanians, to me, when I look at the lifestyle, the history, and the family values, it reminds me of my childhood, which I feel was a much nicer time in my life. And so I feel embraced with the culture of Albania and Albanians. In London, I'm almost fated, and I think, who am I? I'm just a normal journalist. I don't see myself as with any importance at all. But I'm fated. A funny story, the last time I was over here, and I'm staying at this hotel, and every morning there's a lady behind the bar, and she's pouring my tea for me, as I'm having breakfast. And so, I'm just totally unaware of everything at that time in the morning. And one morning, I suddenly realized she's looking at me full on all the time and smiling. So I was sort of slightly unnerved, but so I smiled back and sort of kept on with my food, and I looked up again, and there she was, smiling. And then finally she said, in broken English, she said, "I saw you on television last night." She said, "You were very good."
Isn't that something that happens nowadays after almost 70 years?
Yeah.
Every time, and it's always very, fulfilling.
I get some strange things at times. What type of shows do you do now? You're saying you're doing shows now as well. What type of things do you do?
Actually, in my 30 years of television, I've tried to do television shows like big and small, music contests, interviews all the time, and then but anyway, in relation to David Frost.
Yes.
Because when he was young, they kind of were dubious, skeptic about his performance in the heavy journalism, of asking strong questions.
Yes.
Now this happened in this country with me. I was a part of the of the light show, you know, and then my changing. And I'm very happy that I had the chance to kind of decide. I've done this. I'm very happy with it. But now I'm going to do the all politics show, and ask tough questions and just wait for an answer, for a good answer to be. So, and then they repeat the question if you are not happy. But then, this is me. People were like, no, not people, colleagues. They were like, well, he is a little bit light because he's coming from the light shows, and what does he do in the strong journalism business? He is not very capable in doing this and that. But then I was never kind of scared to try a new thing, and I'm very good at it now. I enjoy it, and this is my place in the history of this country in journalism.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting out easily.
No. I think it's so difficult. I do a show in London called Talking Politics, and I try to make sense of Brexit, and
I'm against Brexit.
so
yeah.
am I. We can shake on that.
Yeah, of course. Nobody would hear us, but then for me, Brexit was a result of an uninformed public,
Absolutely.
and second, a lied to public.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then propaganda and fake news and Farage and Boris,
Yeah.
the Boris guy,
Johnson.
Yeah. But here is the situation we're in.
Yeah.
It goes somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't have any, scruples to,
Yeah.
to talk and to be
Yeah.
with charm and everything, charm people,
Yeah.
and attract them to a very bumpy road
Yeah.
at the end of it.
I mean, I look at Brexit now, and I worry about it. I worry about Britain. I'm concerned about the types of things that are sort of happening right now as well. Are there shows that you would like to do
In the future?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I offered to some people with money to do a kind of conceptual marriage between the Newsroom series
Right.
and the Scandal series, Kerry Washington and Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
Why? Because I wanted to create an office
Right.
with some editors,
Right.
investigative journalists,
Yeah.
squads, teams, and then some hackers, which I love. And then someone is coming and is asking for help because he or she end up in the news with some news which, in his account, wasn't entirely true. Now, we have to investigate during the week,
Yes.
and then shake it up with different kind of viewpoints, and decide editorially in the end which one was the
That's a very
most
clever idea.
plausible idea. They were very kind of traumatized by my idea. Was never done.
So, do you work with TV stations at the moment?
I do.
What are you doing right now?
Actually working in a all news television station at the moment.
Okay. Which one's
called,
that now?
News 24.
News 24. Okay.
It's a good news-oriented television.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of getting a little bit more attracted to generalism as a
Yes.
streaming of the programs, and I hope I'm doing a personal kind of show now. So 4 interviews with 4 different people on 4 kind of issues.
Right.
It's going okay. It's just it started. I mean, last November.
Okay.
So I'm really happy. I do not see the viewership very carefully, and the clicking in the internet, but I'm trying to build up a honest, convincible, very well based television program at the moment.
I think with politics, the thing that viewers actually want in reality, I feel, is just to understand what on earth is going on. You know, and I feel like a poacher turned gamekeeper, because at one stage I worked behind the scenes with our national government, and I was then teaching them how to answer tricky questions for politicians.
They better close their mouth.
So sometimes, you know, it works for both ways. But I think I always think about writing as well. And I tell you a question that popped into my head just now, and you're years away from it, might I add. So don't take this the wrong way. But
no.
If you could write your own epitaph, what would it be?
Oh no! It's a very good question. I've thought about it. It's not something I'm reluctant to face. Yes, I know it. This one, someone who tried to always tell the truth, and never was very happy with it.
I was just trying to think what my one would be, and it was sort of running through my head just now, and it's very bad English, but the boy did good in the end.
I find it very interesting and intelligent, actually. But well, this is a life. This is a profession. You know that better than anyone else. But we're here not. We're here because we love.
Absolutely.
I mean, today in this country, we live, quite surprisingly, to be honest, in a very divided country. Heavy militantism, a partisan militantism. Very lying politicians, and corrupt, and bitching around to convince the audiences that they are very great and they're coming here to make the country great again, and then always making themselves great again, as a matter of fact, like Trump, which I haven't decided yet. I hate him or I like him.
I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about Trump?
I don't know. I guess America kind of deserves Trump at the moment. Whatever they decide.
I mean, the thing that I found most interesting was that there was a documentary done in Britain about Facebook and how Trump spent 85 million on Facebook. And Facebook set up a team somewhere in the center of somewhere like Arizona, and this team were working the demographics and the artificial intelligence, and they were putting out 43,000 messages an hour, and that they could virtually tell to a household, if they twisted the message even very, very slightly, this would affect someone's vote. So finally, how do you feel about manipulation of news and that type of thing now?
But Ian, you've worked in journalism all your life. Manipulation was there every time.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the effort of the newsrooms and editors. Editors were there to kind of make the right thing, to distinguish
Yeah.
the wrong news from the right news, the facts from the outright lies,
Yeah.
or sophisticated lies. So it's something that we have to face. I mean, we are here, as we talk together, that we're here because of a vocation.
Absolutely.
To kind of perform a mission.
Yes.
Because if you explain that to a politician, he
Yes.
is like, do you do that?
Precisely.
I mean, just leave me alone. No, I'm not leaving you alone. Because the audiences, the public doesn't leave you alone. I work on their behalf.
Absolutely.
So just allow me to ask you some questions. And by the way, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I've read a very good book by Jeremy Paxman called English Portrait of a People, and very good book. I don't now necessarily very much like Paxman, but he's okay. He's a good journalist.
Absolutely.
And he's an ass a little bit time to times, but being in television kind of comprises the all,
yes.
you know, the amount of elements and characteristics. Are you an expression individually of a quintessential British gentleman? What makes you British nowadays, today, now?
Okay. The way I can answer that is that when I first started in television, 10, 11 years ago now really, and I started on CNN. So I became an anchor on CNN and worked on The Royal Wedding, William and Kate. And so that particular first time I dressed in this black suit, yellow tie and yellow pocket handkerchief. And you know, I was talking away, and there were different issues that particular night. And they said, "That's wonderful, that's wonderful." So I said, okay. They said, "Don't change the image at all." And so for the next period of time, every time I worked on television, I wore this quintessential thing, and I think they saw me as some bumbling idiot really, but who could talk something about the royal family, and it made some sort of sense, and people were very happy. And I think it happened most recently, and a very quick story, was that last year, normally I dress like this. And the reason why I dress like this is it's my insurance.
Okay.
Because I know I can go out for a day and it might be a day off, and if I dress like this, I won't get called. If I dress down, I always get called. So this one particular day, it was last summer, and I was in jeans and a t-shirt, and I was with a lady friend, and we were just about to start lunch, and the phone rings and it's NBC. And can I come instantly to NBC to do Trump meeting the Queen? So I'm thinking, so I have to rush to a store. They give me 25 minutes to get there. I rush to a store, I pick up a shirt, I pick up a jacket, I pick up a tie, I rush out the store, I get there, and it's a very, very hot day. So my hair was literally, it was like I was under a shower. And so I peeled all my clothes off, went on set. And so they said, you know, in a minute now, we're going to come across from New York to London, Ian Pelham Turner, and he's going to talk about blah, blah, blah.
By the way, how much is the English royal family now changed because of Meghan Markle? Is the lady helping them, or most probably creating a problem whenever they do not intend to do it?
My real feeling is they're at war, and I'm pretty certain.
Inside war.
Yeah, they're at side war. Just to finish the other story. So anyway,
yeah,
so I'm sat there, and there's the Queen. So I'm saying, and it's a tight headshot of the Queen. So I'm saying, well, the Queen is smiling, she's looking very resplendent today, and she's wearing this wonderful, I forget, puce outfit, whatever it was at the time. And I'm expecting now they're going to pull back, and they're going to show Trump, and it keeps on a tight shot. So, and she's still smiling, and they're saying, fill in. So, and I'm saying, and of course the Queen is probably smiling because President Trump went to Blenheim Palace the night before, and one of his favourite people in his life was Winston Churchill, and he sat in Winston Churchill's chair. And I'm thinking, now they're going to pull that. It's still a tight headshot. And so now I'm thinking, oh my God, thank God I'm a royal historian as well. So I said, American visitors and people from America may be interested to know that Blenheim Palace was actually saved by an American heiress. And there was an establishment in the late part of the 19th, early 20th century called Dollar Princesses, where young American female heiresses came to Britain. They married into the aristocracy. The heiresses brought their money, and the aristocracy gave them titles. And I'm thinking, now they've got to pull back. Now I'm running out of storylines. This is the quintessential English, you know. I'm running out of storylines, and all of a sudden, da 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 da. I thought, thank God for that.
Is the royal editing of the story?
I was going like, and I could see myself in the monitor, and I looked like as white as a sheet as I'm staring.
It happens all the time, actually.
As I'm staring.
This
so
is the beauty of it.
I would say, am I quintessentially English? Yes.
Well,
it's been the greatest of pleasure interviewing.
It was the greatest of pleasures.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.